Can't sleep? Don't want to sleep? Afraid to sleep? Are the windows closed? Are your doors locked? Did you check your closet? And under your bed? Maybe you should keep a light on in the hallway, just in case. Now settle in. Make yourself comfortable. Lay back. Close your eyes. And let me tell you a story. Simulation theory holds that it is likely, even certain, that our universe is not real, that we exist only as code running on some alien supercomputer, and everything we do or think is just a product of algorithms and subroutines. Max Fathom believes this to be true, and furthermore, he has devised various hacks to exploit flaws and bugs in that code to benefit himself and his friends. One of those hacks is the Polymorphic Puppy Paradigm. Where can they be? Paula asked, her frustration building as she walked around the living room, searching every nook and cranny without success. We've been looking for over a day, Evan stated as he stood in the doorway watching. I think we should call Max. Paula had misplaced her keys. Again. She and Evan had conducted a systematic search of their entire house, even looking in rooms she knew she hadn't been in since she'd last used them. If we can't find them, how is a total stranger supposed to? She asked. He's not a stranger, he's a friend. A friend you haven't spoken to in over a year. He's an old college buddy. Guys don't need to talk to each other more than once a year to stay friends. So you keep saying, I don't get that. I really don't. If I don't hear from my girlfriends for more than a day or two, they better not call me asking for a favor. He likes to help people. How does a computer programmer help people? Evan sighed. He's not a programmer. He's a hacker. Isn't that what hackers do? Program computers to do things they're not supposed to? He doesn't work with computers. He hacks the simulation. Oh, right. I remember now. Paula paused her search to roll her eyes at Evan. The simulation we're all living in, like the Matrix. Actually, in the Matrix, the people were stored in pods and had avatars that they lived through. In the simulation, we're all just made up. Paula gave Evan a look that reminded him his explanation was not only unnecessary mansplaining, but annoying. And who made us up? She asked, tossing the sofa cushions for the umpteenth time. According to Max, simulated beings in another simulation. Do you realize just how absolutely ridiculous that sounds? Maybe, Evan conceded, but he gets results. Paula returned the cushions to their original places and dropped on the sofa. She looked up at Evan, still skeptical. And he'd be willing to drop everything he's doing to come over here and look for my keys? Oh, I'm sure he won't look for your keys. Then why bother calling him? He has ways of causing them to be found. What does that mean? He'll do something and then you'll find your keys. I don't understand. Is he psychic? No, it's nothing like that. He just knows how the simulation works and how to hack it. Paula tugged at her hair. I must be as crazy as that sounds to even be considering this. But I need those keys. That ring had the only copy to the safe deposit box, and I can't afford to buy another replacement fob for the car. Evan sat down next to her and placed a comforting hand on her knee. Trust me, Max knows what he's doing. All right, she conceded, exasperated. Call your friend. Evan's phone rang. He pulled it out of his pocket and glanced at the screen. He smiled and showed it to Paula. The caller ID indicated it was from Max Fathom. No way, she said, mouth agape. Evan answered. Max, hi. We were just talking about you.
Of course you were. Who is this?
It's Evan Emberson.
Oh, Evan! I'm so glad you called.
You called me, Max,
Did I? What good luck. How can I help?
said the animated voice on the other end of the line. Actually, my wife has lost her...
Say no more.
Max interjected.
I'm on my way. Just need to make a stop or two. Are either of you allergic to dogs?
No, Evan answered, confused.
And you have plenty of paper towels? A couple of rolls, at least?
Yes, Evan said, then looked at Paula for confirmation. We have paper towels, right? We just got a whole pack from Costco last week. Plenty of paper towels, Evan confirmed.
Good, good. That should do just fine.
Are you sure you don't want to know why I was going to call you? What exactly we need?
You lost something. That's all I need to know. I'll be there as soon as I pick up the puppies.
Puppies? Evan asked. Puppies? Paula asked.
Looking forward to seeing you, Evan. I'm so glad you called.
Again, you called me, Max.
Oh, right. So hard to keep track sometimes. What are we having for dinner? Don't answer. Doesn't matter. See you soon.
Wait, don't you want our address? The call ended. Evan shrugged and put his phone away. Puppies? Paula asked again. Are you sure this is a good idea? What have we got to lose? We already can't find your keys. Very funny, Paula said, elbowing Evan. Max Fathom loaded the large cardboard box into the back of his rented SUV. He had reserved an economy car, the most popular choice these days considering gas prices. When he got to the counter, they were all out of economy cars and upgraded him to an SUV at no additional charge. Hacking the simulation was easy if you knew how it worked. There was a rustling sound coming from inside the box, along with yips and yaps. There were 9 puppies inside. Max simultaneously hoped that would be enough, and confidently knew that it was exactly the number required. He was fortunate that he had realized early in his life that he was a character in a simulation, possibly even a sentient one, though he couldn't rule out that every choice he made was pre-programmed. The evidence was all around if you took the time to notice. Mathematical patterns such as Fibonacci sequences being replicated in nature, inexplicable behaviors in animals and insects, quantum physics. Einstein had famously stated, "God does not play dice with the universe." Max knew better. He not only played dice, but the dice were loaded. And just like any other alleged game of chance, if one knew the odds, he could beat the house. At first, his awareness of the simulation caused him great distress. What was the point of it all if he wasn't real? But then again, what was reality? Life certainly felt real. It smelled real, it tasted real, and even hurt sometimes. There was, he decided, a certain amount of pleasure and satisfaction to be derived from what he experienced, and whether or not it was real was irrelevant. Then he realized that all the little quirks that exposed the simulation for what it was, what most people described as coincidences or the wonders of nature or miracles, were exploitable. He could hack the simulation to improve his experience within it, and also use his knowledge to help others. It was possible that his awareness of the simulation was a feature of the simulation, that the inevitable eventuality for any simulation of sufficient complexity would be to reveal the simulation's nature to its inhabitants. Regardless, he was, to a certain degree, now in charge of his own destiny, or at least parts of it. Max didn't know where Evan lived, but in his experience, such trivia really wasn't relevant. One of his most useful hacks was to get where he needed to go by assuming he would always be where he needed to be. His call to Evan earlier had happened by pure chance. He meant to phone his eye doctor, but accidentally tapped the adjacent entry in his phone for Evan Amberson, and, as expected, Evan had a need for his services. He was sitting at a sidewalk cafe while making the call. During the conversation, he saw a sign in a pet shop across the street announcing they had puppies for sale. Puppies were one of Max's favorite hacks. They were incredibly useful for so many things. So, after he hung up with Evan, he purchased every puppy they had left, loaded them into his SUV, and started driving. To an uninformed observer, the route he took might appear random, but there was a reason behind every lane change and turn. Whenever Max came upon an intersection or off-ramp or fork in the road, he looked for a sign. Not a figurative one, some abstract indication of what to do next, but a literal sign. For example, at one intersection, he came upon Barker Road. Since he had a box full of puppies in his car, that sounded right, so he made a right turn onto Barker. Later, he saw a billboard for electric vans. E-vans. Evan. So he headed in that direction. Eventually, he found himself in a suburban neighborhood and saw a house with a sign above the mailbox reading, "The Ambersons." He grabbed the box of puppies out of the back of the car, walked up to the front door, and pressed the buzzer with his nose, since his hands were otherwise occupied. A moment later, Evan opened it. "Hello?" he asked, since Max's face was hidden behind the enormous box. "Evan, it's Max. Can I come in?" "Of course," Evan replied. He opened and held the screen door for his friend. "Do you need a hand with that?" "No, it's fine. I've got it." Max stepped into the house. "Where can I set this down?" he asked. "Right over here," Evan answered. Max followed the sound of his voice and set the box down where he was directed. He faced Evan, opened his arms for an embrace, and engulfed his old friend in a bear hug. "So good to see you, Evan." "You too, Max," Evan said as he was being smothered. Max noticed a woman standing off to the side, regarding him suspiciously. He released Evan and approached her. "And you must be Paula. So sorry I couldn't make it to the wedding. I had to go to the movies that day." "The movies?" Paula asked, confused. "Yes. Leaving my house was the only way I could make absolutely sure that the cable repairman would show up. Fortunately, I changed my mind about seeing the movie at the last minute and was able to catch him before he drove off." "I see. You scheduled the cable repairman the same day as our wedding." "Well, it was the only time they had available, obviously." "Obviously," Paula repeated. Max walked up to her and, before she could react, wrapped her up in a huge embrace as well. "I knew you would understand." Once he let her go, Paula asked, "What's in the box?" "Puppies," Max replied. "I'm sure I mentioned that I was bringing them over." "You did, but you didn't say why," Evan observed. "Well, you've lost something, and since I was sitting at a coffee shop across from a pet store when you called—" "You called me, Max," Evan reminded him. "Yes, we'll have to agree on that one. Anyway, they had puppies for sale, so the Polymorphic Puppy Paradigm was the obvious choice of hacks to employ for this situation." "The puppy what?" Paula asked. "You see," Max began, "the simulation, like every computer system, is not perfect. There are shortcuts, bugs, and other flaws that can be exploited. The Polymorphic Puppy Paradigm is one of those exploits." Paula's eyes widened in confusion. She looked to Evan for help, but he just shrugged, equally lost. "There are several useful aspects to it," Max explained. "For example, it's great for tracking down someone you haven't seen in a long time." "Really?" Paula regarded him skeptically. "How does that work?" "Just take a puppy for a walk in a public place. Either they'll get off the leash and run off or get tangled up around a passerby. That person, or the Good Samaritan who brings the runaway puppy back, will inevitably turn out to be an old acquaintance, perhaps an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend." "Why in the world would that be true?" Paula asked. "Basically, it's part of their programming. Puppies are what I call connectors. They link things that aren't normally related to one another. It's a handy feature," Max explained. "Uh-huh," Paula replied skeptically. Max walked over to the box and opened the top of it. A chorus of high-pitched barking started. "Have you ever had a dog?" he asked. Paula nodded. "After college." Evan looked at his wife, surprised. I didn't know you had a dog. It was before we met. Was it a puppy when you got it? Max continued. Yes, Paula confirmed. And what was the most annoying part about the experience? Paula groaned as she recalled her first months with a puppy in her apartment. The fact that it chewed up everything and anything of value it could get its teeth on. I'll bet there were several times you wondered how in the world he found something. Dozens. It was like he had a superpower to find the things I cared about the most and destroy them. Precisely. That's another feature of the polymorphic puppy paradigm. One that will come in handy today. Max began unloading puppies from the box. Some simply sat and took in their surroundings. Others started sniffing around. A few checked out Paula and Evan. Evan picked one up and smiled as it licked his face. We're not keeping it, Paula warned. Then she turned to Max. Why are you letting all these dogs loose in my house? Puppies, Max corrected. It doesn't work with dogs. They have to be puppies. Okay. Why are you letting all of these puppies loose in my house? I thought I explained this already. It's the quickest way to find something. One puppy, as you know from personal experience, given enough time, will find all sorts of things that you may not even have known were lost. To speed things up, just add more puppies. By now, some of the puppies had made their way into other rooms, though a couple had settled in for a nap. So you purposefully unleashed a horde of shoe-chewing, pillow-ripping, cord-chopping beasts into my home on the off chance that one of them will find my keys? Not off chance, Max corrected. Inevitability. One of the puppies trotted back into the front foyer in which they were all standing, carrying a screwdriver in his mouth. He dropped it at Evan's feet. Hey, my Phillips head. I've been looking for this. How long will this take? Paula asked Max. Could be a while. Didn't you mention something about dinner? I think that was you, and I'm sure we can set an extra place, Evan said. Paula shot him a glance. Another puppy trotted into the foyer carrying a TV remote. He sat down and started chewing on it. The TV in the adjacent living room turned on. Paula snatched the device from the puppy's jaws. It was covered in tooth marks and saliva. She showed it to Evan. I was looking for that, he offered. Dinner was a tuna casserole Paula was planning on lasting 2, possibly 3 meals. Max finished the whole thing off almost by himself. During the course of their meal, the puppies discovered lost socks and mittens, a credit card, 2 more screwdrivers, a flashlight, a tape measure, and a bungee cord neither Paula nor Evan could remember ever seeing before. This is amazing, Evan remarked. Still haven't found my keys, Paula moaned. Suddenly, an alarm started blaring from outside. Ah, I think one of them has discovered the fob for your car, Max exclaimed. He got up from the table and crossed to a window that faced the street. Silver Corolla? He asked. Paula nodded. She and Evan got up from the table and started looking around for the puppy that was chewing on her keys. As they encountered each one, Paula inspected their mouths and then placed them back in the box in the foyer. Evan started doing the same while Max sat back down at their dining room table and started in on the cherry cobbler. 8 puppies were returned to the box while the car alarm kept chirping away outside. The phone rang. Paula answered. Hello? Yes, I know it is. We're trying to find the fob to turn it off. A pause. If I knew where it was, I would do so, Mr. Hartigan. Thank you for calling. She hung up, then turned to Max. Any hacks for locating a missing puppy? She asked. And don't say more puppies. Max smiled. Where do you keep your shoes? Paula's expression turned to one of horror, and she raced down the hall to her bedroom. The closet door was ajar, and inside, chewing on her favorite pumps, was a little black puppy. She picked him up, the shoe still clenched in his jaws. Drop it, she commanded. The puppy looked at her and opened its mouth. The shoe fell to the ground, and the keys that were in the toe jangled and bounced out. Paula handed the puppy to Evan, who had rushed in to join her. She reached down, picked up the keys, and pressed the alarm button on the fob. The honking and beeping from outside stopped. Paula looked at the keys. The fob had a little damage, but was obviously still working. Her shoe was another story. Evan followed her out of the bedroom and back to the dining room where Max was helping himself to a second serving of cobbler. He looked up, smiling, obviously pleased with himself. "Ah, as promised, your keys," he proclaimed. "And it only cost me $100 pair of shoes," Paula remarked, more than a little annoyed. "This cobbler is delicious. You must give me the recipe," Max said, as he lifted another forkful to his mouth. Evan deposited the last puppy into the box in which they had arrived. He nearly slipped in a puddle of pee spreading across the hardwood floor. "They're not house-trained?" he asked Max. "I wouldn't think so. That's why I asked if you had paper towels." Max finished his cobbler, then got up from the table, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "Well, thank you for the lovely dinner. So glad we were able to find your keys, Paula. Evan, we really must do this again sometime." "Perhaps we'll go out next time," Evan suggested. "Good idea," Paula muttered. Max gave Evan and Paula big, lingering hugs, then headed for the front door. "Don't forget the puppies," Paula shouted after him. "Oh, I'm headed straight for the airport. You'll have to take care of them." "What? How?" Evan asked. "Just put a sign in your yard saying free puppies. They'll be gone inside a day. One more aspect of the polymorphic puppy paradigm," Max said, as he disappeared out the front door. Paula walked into the kitchen, grabbed a roll of paper towels, and handed them to Evan. "You're lucky we're living in a simulation," she told him. "If I strangle you in your sleep, you won't really be dead. You can just restart." She headed toward the bedroom. "I wonder if that's what reincarnation is," Evan said to himself. "And you're doing the dishes, too," Paula added, before slamming the bedroom door shut. Thank you for listening to The Polymorphic Puppy Paradigm, written especially for the Bedtime Stories for Insomniacs fiction podcast by Rich Hosick. Please remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us on Apple, Spotify, and Audible, and share these stories, as well as the unabridged audiobook versions of my novels, with anyone you know who enjoys audio fiction. Be sure to visit bedtimestories.studio, where you can sign up for our Insomniacs Snoozeletter to be notified of new episodes and exclusive offers, and get a free bookmark. You can visit richhosick.com to learn more about the host of Bedtime Stories for Insomniacs. Thanks again, and all the very best.